Joiner, what they do is that they sue you in your own personal capacity. They sue two people nowadays, if you are looking and following the trend. They sue the person who is in HR, and they sue the MD in their own personal capacity. You cause me distress and whatever. Defamation of my name, that's not a place that you want to be. So it's just making sure that the courage we bring to the business is around being in a position of saying, this is how things done. I understand the business. This is how we should do. And if we do it, these are the results that we are going to see. Show people the end results of what it would be, and they will buy in your agenda. Okay. Any question around courage, initiative, and integrity? Challenging more? What have you done? Is it possible? Is it something that you would enjoy to do? Anything that you would like to contribute? There are many avenues we do that. The business doesn't sometimes accord us these opportunities. Okay, let's move a bit faster. I know we are coming to the end of time. Leading and managing people agenda. How do we do that? I will not. People are at the top or near top of the agenda of every CEO. So we do that. You know, if it is what keeps the CEO awake at night, you will always hear it's about people. How do I manage people? And that's a good agenda. On one hand, having the right talent in the business enable the CEO to execute these plans. Okay. So it's important for you as a HR business partner to make sure that you're bringing in the right people, you're hiring right, you're going out of your way to make sure that the talent that you're sourcing is really fit for the business. As the war for talent grows increasingly fierce, sometimes some positions are rare, some talents are rare. Management of people is key concern. So what can you do is to look internally and enrich people's talent and make sure that there is no gap. For this reason, the role of the HR in the organization has been and continues to be scrutinized heavily to make sure that we are meeting the people agenda. So that's one of the things that will continue being on the agenda, the recruitment, okay? So the other one is many CEOs cite the availability of the right talent as one of the major challenges that they face. And sometimes I just think, really, do we face availability of agenda in this country? Or even if you look from a global perspective, do you think there is an availability of right agenda in this world? Because this sometimes can be very unsettling for HR. Or you guys don't find it unsettling where CEOs, just check, actually. Again, go World to World Economic Forum or CEOs agenda and look at what CEOs are always saying. They say that we can't get the right talent. Is it true?
I can say this, that sometimes there is scarcity of certain skills, and especially in certain industries. And so on, if they're available, then they were way above. You get them at a premium, probably the budget doesn't allow. So it's not that they are not there, but probably there are the limitations within the business that, yes, you get somebody even from the diaspora, but really when you look at their expectations and the terms, we may not be able to afford within the budget available.
Yeah, true. I agree that there could be some talents which are, some skills which are rare, and we have to bring in with salary personnel to sell. Sometimes they unstabilize our grading scale. Some people start feeling kugungunika in the coffee pots and water dispensers around there. That's this person, what are they coming? But if as HR business partners preemptively, which is, Juliana, you said it, sometimes that's rare, and we've all been there in those difficult conversations, then our role is to make sure that we do what? Is to look internally and start training quickly and fast so that we don't miss those opportunities. And the more people we train, the better we get at it. And even when we train, we become a fertile field for our competitors to come and steal our people. sometimes we can't win. So I keep saying, try as much as possible to do it. But even if we are training and then we have those people, we have the opportunity maybe to bond them, saying we've trained you, you've become whatever, we are going to bond you for a couple of years as we both get the services that we want, and we are training. So we are training more people in the pipeline. And even if they leave for competition, then we are better placed. So there's a plan. Remember that plan we are talking about as HR business partners, that we must always have a plan, okay? So talent finding and winning and keeping it, talent management, attracting, retaining, developing, and promoting outstanding talent is one of the critical capabilities that will distinguish a successful organization now in the future. Like what we have said, one of the things that is crucial for a HR business partner, understanding the partner, the business, but also understanding what we can do from that perspective of bringing in the right talent. And if there's a war for talent, seeing what strategies we can put internally to make sure that we are not caught in that battlefield, that we have already made a plan for ourselves to make sure that whatever, even good HR, sometimes organizations struggle and say, we just don't feel that they are pushing the agenda in the right way. And I just say, why would you say anything like that? And I'm very protective. I'm sure all of us would be very protective because we're in that HR arena. But if you know that your friend is failing there, then it's for you to bet and say, well, what can we do to support you in that area? Some environments are bad, as we said, okay? Finding talent and keeping it. The key immediate steps organizations should taking to find and win talent, creating the right incentive model, making sure that motivation to leave motivation to leave is not only the reward package, but working environment and other factors. Not when I'm coming and saying I want to leave is when you say, oh, please, let's talk about it and see how we can retain you. One of the key factors for low retention rate is lack of employee engagement and investment in people development. Remember where we say, don't just leave people feel free fall. The key word right now is employee experience. And for you to be able to do that, you need to do much more by that constant discussion, constant feedback, seeing what we can do. Some things are so easy, but just creating a respectful environment and saying, we're in this together. This is your company. You have the right to be here. We appreciate you being here. And we all know that we support each other, okay? People effectiveness, transforming HR. People effectiveness, transforming HR is to deliver on the people agenda. Today, people form up to 70% of overall costs, are often the biggest expenses for the organization. Yet by and large, organizations do much better job of measuring their physical assets than they do in measuring the impact of the people on the business. Isn't it? We know that the people agenda is the most important one. But most of the time, we measure impact by the physical assets that we have. And that came out so right, that during COVID, companies were asset rich and cash poor because they didn't have whatever. Like airlines, they had planes and planes and planes, but they didn't have money. They couldn't afford. The aviation industry was one of the whatever. So there was a running joke. You are asset rich, but cash poor. But then someone put on LinkedIn something that ignited discussion and say, we are looking at it very unfairly, which was anyway because they couldn't pay and whatever. But think about all the talent that you have internally. And that was a game changer in terms of keeping people and airlines starting to think we can't lose people. We must find another strategy of even if it is taking people on long leaves, but how also do we expect them to live during this time when there's no business happening? Pay cuts, Some airlines were able to go back and say, as soon as we're back to profit, we will give you back your money. Some have. I know some of my friends who work in the airline industry, their salaries were cut, and up to date, they brought them back, but they never talked about that we cut your salary. It was a bad time. So do they consider them as bad employers? Yes, they do. If they got an opportunity to leave, perhaps they would, So that's, as HR business partners, again, we need to look at the people agenda as the first one or whatever. People effectiveness, transforming HR, establishing HR metrics for the business units to report on the people progress. A good leader builds a cohesive and strategic team that provides an enabling environment. That is important. You as the HR leader, build a good team. You as the finance manager, build a good team. Then overall, we'll have good teams in the organization, okay? So many major programs fail to achieve the benefits they intended to deliver, but the need to change and change more rapidly and more frequently in the face of a faster moving global business environment is pressing more urgently on all organizations. And what more, that change has to be sustainable. We must make sure that the change is sustainable. So these are just some of the things that really we want to emphasize. The last slides that I'm talking about, or the discussions, is to make sure that as a HR business partner, you are really looking at the people, you're looking at the business, and you're looking at the teams that make you stay. And how do we make sure that the business is sustainable? Remember what I said, internally and externally, you have the responsibility to make sure that you are pushing your brand for it to be sustainable. Achieving sustainable change is complex and difficult. You can't be the change agents completely. We have to work with everybody. And sometimes it takes a multidisciplinary team to look at the ecosystem and for us to be able to look to change what we want. Change fails to take hold for a variety of reasons, but they all largely come down from there to people's attributes and behaviors. If people want to sabotage you, they will. And we have seen organizations which have been sabotaged by people because they were not involved in the change agenda. They do not believe in the change agenda. And even when we want to change, all the time is because they don't believe the first change that was so right, and then you didn't do it well. You took advantage of the change. They will not give you an opportunity to be successful. And unfortunately, allow me to say this, is sometimes we see the citizens from a political perspective. The politicians tell us this, they do not deliver. So it's us against the politicians. You get what I mean? Sometimes we go to look for government services where we know that we expected, and you see changes, good changes. Sometimes there's good changes in the public sector. Let's call it out what it is. But sometimes still the attitude is still there. They could have the right working environment in terms of tools and even how the offices are arranged and stuff, but the attitude that comes from people. So we don't believe that they have actually changed. So there's a lot of change, and change comes from really the change that we want, the physical change, but also the change is attributed. It's very, it's based on attitude and the behaviors that are observable. Okay, great. So common principles of change process, a common principle that defines the change process is that change is personal. It starts with each individual, so that the basis for understanding what motivates an individual to change is critical in building a bigger picture of more pervasive around organizational change. And as a HR business partner, one of the pillars, remember, is the expert, the change expert, you remember. And that will be so much on your face around all the change programs that are in the organization, because they will touch on people. So for you, even as an individual, do you believe in this change? And how does this change impact me, positively or negatively? Even if it's impacting you negatively, what can you do? What are some of the things that you can do? You are the one who is going to drive the change. to a certain degree, and you feel that it's impacting you negatively as an individual, what can you do? Maybe share with us an experience, or maybe some of the things that you can do for us to learn. Just as a last very few minutes, I know we're over. We'll take another 5 minutes to end, but this one is crucial. You're a change agent, change expert. That is required of you as a business partner, but you feel that it impacts you negatively. What can you do? Someone to share? Someone to share? Someone to share? How can we do that? Please share. Oh, everybody has left and left me here.
No,
Or you will just, yeah. How can we, Rachel, how can we, this change is so bad for me. I want to go. For me, I can leave. I have the opportunity to leave, and be known that I was not brave enough and courageous. That is one way. Another way,
sometimes, Catherine, I think I'll just quote you in what you said. Sometimes you do not know how to respond to some of these changes, and they can also pull you down and weigh heavily on you. So I like what you said, that it's always important, even as HR, to have other friends in the profession who you can borrow a leaf from, because at times we discover that we don't know it all, and some of the dynamics that are happening or things that are happening are fairly new. So it's also important to have people who you can ask whether they have experienced such kind of change, and then how they navigate. If they have not, probably they can, you can just brainstorm. That's why it's important for HR to have a circle of friends who can, work with you in the journey.
A good group of friends, yeah. Great, thank you. Okay. So I won't go through into each. Let me just be able just to reference around this change because it's important. And although there is no universal that one size fits all prescriptions around changes, good practices repeatedly show that that the following broad strategies are essential components of effective change. Top-down engagement. The thing is that the people at the top need to show care to the people at the down, so that they can be able to, the people down can be able to come and say, wow, we hear you, they really care about us. And we know that. So I will not even belabor and go into that. Change versus business as usual. If we say it's business as usual, and we like to say it's business as usual, it cannot always be business as usual. We need to show what change will bring for us so that it continues being business as usual. That's the new mantra. You need to change so that it can continue being business as usual. And even this change, how it impacts the business. Clear, concise, and consistent communication. We've talked about communication and what we do in the world all over. Every day, day in, day out, breathing is about communication. Make it clear, make it concise, and make it consistent. Consistent even in the way that is observable, and consistent in the way that we implement things. Meaningful measures so that we can be able to look at, even when we are making sure that we are implementing this change, we can be able to measure, and that measure people can be able to say, indeed, it is okay. This change we have instituted, it's okay, and we're able to do what? We're able to see the results of it. So I won't go into all of it, because if you go to the what do you call it? To the LMS, you'll be able to look into all this. Okay. So allow me to go to the implementation. The implementation plan for all of us to go. This is, I promise this is the last slide. Around the phase 1 is to organize, for you to become a strong business partner. And how can you implement this at your workplace is to assess organizational readiness and organizational capability. Phase 2 is to prepare for implementation, validate some of the models that we have seen. What are your quick wins and what can you do? If you're going to take the 4 pillars that have been referenced by Dave Ulrich, then you can see whether it's going to work for your organization, but it should work. Present and make recommendations. You know, if you're going to make recommendations in terms of how we are going to partner in understanding and making sure that we are ready for this HR business partnering, then we are able to get the buy-in from people and educate and train. Phase 3 is to plan and to implement, communicate the new HR model and function, deliver development plans. There'll always be plans, and those plans need to have way to be able to evaluate and to make sure that we are collecting data around them. And then roll out in terms of the new HR operating model, new strategies for HR business function. And finally is to make sure that we are evaluating the function business, the HR business leader, the business, the business partner, and the HR and the CEOs. Everybody must be brought on board and making sure that that model is operating. What am I trying to say in a nutshell that we close before I go back to plenary? Is one of the things is that we have this. I'm sure all what we have discussed in this webinar this morning is that these things are happening at the workplace. But for you to become a strong business partner, are you really looking at the business and giving people the opportunity to be the ones doing the work? And you're going in from a technical perspective and saying, let's evaluate and let's do it more. If it's the people agenda, the employee advocate factor and pillar, what are you doing in that pillar? You know, if it's the administrative expert, what are you doing in that pillar? Very deliberate to support the business. If it's the change champion, what are you doing when change aspects are coming into the organization? And finally, the strategist, what are you doing? That's my challenge for you. You're doing all these things. It's not that you're not doing them, but how are you impacting the business as you're going along? How courageous are you being? And how are you positioning yourself as HR around the people agenda and around the business agenda that keeps us being sustainable throughout? If we were to wake up 100 years from now, would we find the organization having leveraged on the things that you did and incrementally having grown? Of course, the world will be different. You can imagine how technology is being used now, but you would want to be able to be there. So that marks the end of our seminar. We'll take it back to plenary in terms of hearing your feedback, hearing whether it met your expectations, things that you would wish to take back to the business, and or even for yourself as a person, and whether it was worthwhile your 3 hours of this spending time. Anybody?
Hi, Catherine.
Hi.
For me, it has been a very informative session, a very insightful one. I think the one thing my take home for this session, we recently had a new COO come into the company, and he told me one thing he was advised by the group GCO. He was told, learn everything and then forget. So I never understood what it meant, but just coming to this session, there's a lot of things I need to forget so that we can do things the right way, the change that you're talking about. Otherwise, if we continue doing things, the business as usual, as you've rightfully put it, we conform back and it's even hard to move forward or even for people to just appreciate the changes that are taking part in HR practice. So thank you so much for this session.
You're welcome. We need to unlearn to learn. I like what your CEO came in. I like that fresh tagline of his. Yeah, great. Yeah, nice. Anybody else? Takeaways? What are you taking back to the business? Or we call it a day? Thank you for your chats. They're very informative. I hope we've all been able to read them. And if there's no more remarks, I want to say that we all are a community of practice. Let's support each other. Let's make sure that we are continuously learning and taking it back to the business so that we refresh the business from that perspective. And also like to thank ACHRP. Thank you, Dan, for putting up this webinar this Saturday morning. I think there's some information about the upcoming webinars, and Dan's number is there as well. Go to the website, and we can be able to see the upcoming ones so that we can all plug in and make sure that we are a strong community of practice. So for me, is to wish you a very happy weekend, and God bless you. Take care. Bye for now.
Bye.
Bye. Mm-hmm. Unless Dan had something to say, but he's put everything on the chat.
Okay, goodbye. Have a good weekend.
You too. Bye, everybody. Thank you.
Thank you. Bye-bye.
Welcome. Now.
Bye.
Thank you.
Bye-bye. Take care.